Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ancient Warfare Answers. And again, I'm alone. It's Murray's Ancient Warfare Answers. And we have a question from Rish Boilu. And I will get to that in a minute. You, of course, can ask a question, email, message. You can join us on Patreon. There's 3 different levels of joining us on Patreon. You can get a copy of the magazine, an electronic copy of the magazine, or you can just throw us $1 and be a friend. Now, the question we have is from Rich, and he says, we have a relatively good picture of what the Roman legionary weapons and materiel manufacturing process looked like, at least for some time periods. Do we have any similar information for the Philippian Alexandrian Macedonian army? That's a lot of 16-foot long sarissas, spear shafts, and spear points to manufacture. And I'm curious what we know about it. Also, what was that logistical in the development and innovation of Phillips, or did it predate him? Did I even say that right? Also, was that logistical development and innovation of Phillips, or did it predate him? Yes, I've said that correctly. Now, so 2 questions. First one is, are the reforms to the Macedonian army Phillips, or do they predate Philip? My thinking is that they're Phillips. We get told that by Diodorus, we get told that by Plutarch, and we get told that when he surprisingly comes to the Macedonian throne in 359, yes, 359 BC, he's the 3rd brother. So he's already had his Alexander II and Perdiccas III predate him, and he was not expecting to become king. He'd already been traded as a hostage to both the Illyrians under Bardilius and also the Thebans under Epaminondas and Pamenes. So he's the pawn. So the fact that he becomes king is unexpected, and the sources we have tell us that he learned and absorbed the lessons of both the Illyrian court and the Thebans. Probably the Thebans, we're talking about learning lessons from Epaminondas in terms of the phalanx, the depth of the phalanx. There's no real evidence that the Thebans had a longer spear than anyone else at that point in time, but we do have evidence of Iphicrates of Athens lengthening the spear, the dory. And according to some versions of the history, the spear gets doubled in length. So it's becoming sarissa length-like. And the interesting thing there, of course, is that when the Macedonians do show up with these 16-foot sarissas, no one talks about how long their spears are. That's not a noteworthy factor. And so chances are that kind of long spear is something that's been seen and is expected and isn't such a shock. So we get told that when he unexpectedly becomes king, Philip goes and has meetings around Macedonia, and he organizes them and trains them in a new way. So to me, that's when these innovations are introduced, whether they be cavalry and combined arms and phalanx, unclear, but almost certainly that's when the phalanx becomes the prototype of the phalanx that Alexander will use. And we do have one other source, which doesn't credit Philip. It credits an Alexander. Anaximenes, fragment 4, for those of you following along, talks about it being Alexander's innovation. Now, the problem with that, which Alexander? In later Macedonian history, Alexander the Great is the man about whom everything is credited to, but Alexander inherits the army from his father. So I think that the source is probably referring to Alexander. When you say in the ancient sources Alexander, you mean Alexander the Great. But there are other Alexanders. And one of them, of course, is the elder brother of Philip, who could possibly have introduced a reform, except he gets his ass kicked by the Illyrians. So is the infantry formation that Philip is able to not only dominate the Illyrians and the Paeonians, but conquer the rest of Greece with, going to have been invented by someone who doesn't conquer with it? And I don't think so. I think it's a Philippian invention and innovation and not an earlier one. You can argue against that. There's, reasons to say so, but I think it's a Philippian one. So I think it's a Philippian innovation. The next part of the question, of course, is what do we know about the logistics materiel of the Macedonians? And that's where we get into the we don't know territory. Generally speaking, the sarissas are made of cornel wood, which grows on the coasts of Anatolia and in other regions accessible to the Macedonians. We've got the very controversial idea that there was a metal joining sheath in the sarissa. There's one that survives in the archaeological record, so it's very hard to say this is something that had. The idea is, of course, that the sheath would hold the two halves of a sarissa together, and therefore you weren't needing to find such long cornel shafts. You could have half the length, and therefore, if your sarissa shaft broke, you could replace the half. But then it's like, how would the sheath work? Would it hold it in place? So that's a bit of a controversy. But also, of course, we don't know. So we can't say whether that works or not. And there's all sorts of argument about the bend that you would get if you had one 16-foot length of cornel wood as opposed to two 8-foot lengths of cornel wood with a bronze section in the middle. And so we don't know where those are produced. We don't know how they are produced on the march that Alexander goes on, into the heart of the Persian Empire. There must have been one. It's not like I broke my spear, send back to Macedonia to get me a new one. That can't happen. So there must have been either wood that could be used or sourced, or they were carrying vast amounts of spares, which we don't hear about in the source material. So that's hard to know, but chances are there was some form of arrangement involved that didn't involve going all the way back to Macedonia. Similarly with the bronze founding that required, for your sarissa and your blades. And the funny thing, of course, about the Macedonian phalanx is that it's a weapon that is very specific in terms of its weaponry and in terms of the sarissa. So it's not like they're going to simply grab and use spears that they find in Persia. They're going to be manufacturing the same spear that they're used to fighting with. And one of the remarkable things about the victories of Alexander, and this comes back to the innovation being Phillips, is that the general depth of the Macedonian phalanx is 16 ranks. So your Macedonian phalanx is made up of 6 and only ever 6 taxace, a single called a taxis. Now, when you try and type that into a Word document, it tries to keep changing it to taxis. Very annoying. But taxace, each one of those taxace has 1,500 men in it. And only ever 1,500 men, and each one of those 6 of those 1,500 men taxace from a particular region of probably upland Macedonia. And then within each taxace, there's 6 further subdivisions of syntagmata or a syntagma for a single, and that has 256 men in it. So there's 6 of those, and then 6 taxace make the Macedonian phalanx. So they are armed in the same way throughout the campaigns of Alexander. So chances are they're needing to be re-equipped in exactly the way that they've become familiar with. And another reason for that is that formation suffers incredibly low casualties. One of the things about the source material for Alexander is that the casualty numbers are meticulously recorded, and they're very low from Arrian and Plutarch and Diodorus and Justin and Curtius Rufus, the major sources. And so one of the things that seems to be very effective about the sarissa, which we presume the rear ranks of the phalanx, so the front 5 ranks, the sarissa would project forward, and then the rear 11 ranks, their spears are not projecting forward of the front. So chances are they're being held on an angle or directly vertical. And they have a really good way of disrupting enemy missile fire, which is why I think the casualty numbers are so low. And that is that they basically are able to stop enemy shafts from effectively hitting the Macedonian phalangites underneath them. And so you can't lose lots of spears without replacing them, because you will lose that effective breaking up of missile fire. So I think that whatever and however the Macedonians replace their sarissa shafts, they are doing it. It's just we don't know exactly how, or how they're sourcing them, or what the logistics pathway is to provide them with new spear shafts.